Hello everyone, Irish Warlock here, and today we are going through the Game Informer article for Dragon Age The Veilguard. This is the last of the forecasted media coverages for Dragon Age Veilguard that was released, I think, back on the 9th or the 10th, just shortly after the original trailer was released at the Xbox showcase. We know there's more news and coverage coming throughout the summer, but we don't have any idea of when it's coming or if BioWare is releasing it themselves or if it's going to come from a third party like Game Informer or Eurogamer or something like that. So it's about a 12-page article from what I understand. It's by Kyle Hillard, who's one of the staff there at Game Informer. And we're probably going to learn a good bit about Veilguard. Probably going to have some spoilers, so I imagine if you want to go in totally blind, best not to watch this video or read the article. So yeah, spoilers are advised, or spoilers are possible, however that is said. So, throughout my research and preparation for a trip to BioWare's Edmonton, Canada office for this cover story, I kept returning to the idea that its next game, Dragon Age The Veilguard, formerly subtitled Dreadwolf, is released at a critical moment for the story's developer. Yeah, it is. The previous installment, Dragon Age Inquisition, hit PlayStation, Xbox, and PC a decade ago. It'll be a decade this November, which is when we kind of think this Veilguard is actually going to come out. It was the win Bioware needed following the 2012 release of Mass Effect 3, which, with its highly controversial and for many disappointing ending, I didn't hate it as much as a lot of people did. Inquisition launched 2 years later in 2014 to rave reviews and eventually various Game of the Year awards, almost as if a reminder of what this studio was capable of. Yeah, it was definitely a turnaround. Now in 2024, coincidentally, the next strategy game finds itself in a similar position. BioWare attempted a soft reboot from Mass Effect Andromeda in 2017, largely seen as a letdown among the community. I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it either, and saw its first live service multiplayer attempt in 2019's Anthem flounder in tricky waters of the genre. An aim for a No Man's Sky like turnaround with Anthem next, but that rework was cancelled in 2021. I didn't care that Anthem got cancelled, wasn't really looking forward to it, so it's not the biggest deal for me. Like its predecessor, Bioware's next Dragon Age installment, I'll have to scroll up, is not only a new release in a beloved franchise, but it's another launch with the pressure of Bioware's prior misses. A game fans hope will remind them that Bioware is still alive today. Yeah, it's obviously got a lot riding on it, and hopefully it pulls itself through because we really need a good win for Bioware. I haven't been in this industry for 25 years, and to see hits and misses, and it's all about building off those hits and learning about those misses. Bioware's general manager Gary McKay, who's been with the studio since January 2020, tells me. As McKay gives me a tour of the office, I can't help but notice how much Anthem is scattered around it. More than Mass Effect, more than Dragon Age, there's a lot of Anthem. Posters, real life replicas of various javelins, wallpaper, and more. That is surprising that they haven't tried to bury that after everything that's happened. You think they'd have a lot of Dragon Age, a lot of Mass Effect, and then a little bit of something like Jade Empire and Baldur's Gate. I'm really, really surprised that they have so much Anthem still up. Like maybe the series isn't dead for them, or maybe it's like a grim reminder, like we must atone for this. It's a very strange choice for decor. Recent Bioware news stories tell of leads and longtime studio veterans laid off and others departing voluntarily. Veilguard's development particularly began with the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. When I asked McKay about the tumultuousness of Bioware and how he, as the studio manager, makes the team feel safe in the product it's developing, he says it's about centering on a creative vision. When we have the relentless pursuit of quality and we have passion and people in the right roles, a lot of the other stuff you're talking about just fades into the background. That's a sentiment echoed throughout the team I spoke to. Focus on what makes a Bioware game great and let Veilguard speak for itself. Though I had no expectations going in, it's been 10 years since the last Dragon Age, after all, and Bioware has been cagey about showing this game publicly. My expectations have been surpassed. Okay, good to hear. It's great that we're seeing a lot of people from various news groups Game Informer, IGN, and Eurogamer all kind of saying their hands-on looks behind the scenes that we haven't seen are very positive because it's great to hear. Other than that one PC Gamer article that was just like, it's not Baldur's Gate 3. Yeah, we know it's not Baldur's Gate 3. This return to Thedas, the singular content of the franchise, feels like both a warm welcome for returning fans and an impressive entry point for first-time players. That's good that this does need to bring in first-time players. New age, new game. At the start of each interview, I address a dragon sized elephant in the room with the game's leads. What was Dragon Age Dreadwolf is now Dragon Age the Veilguard. Why? Okay, the grammar in this article is a bit off, I find, and maybe that's just me. These games are reflections of the teams that make them, and as part of that, it means we learn a lot about the heart and soul of the game really as it's developing. The Veilguard director Corinne Bush tells me. We quickly learn and realize that the absolute beating heart of this game is these authentic and diverse companions. And when we took a step back, as we always do, we always check our decisions and make sure we are still representing the game we are trying to build. Dreadwolf no longer did that, but each member of Bioware I speak to tells me that Veilguard does. And while I was initially abrasive to the change, lore aside, Dreadwolf simply is a cool name. It is. I warmed up to the Veilguard. I've warmed up. Over the last week, I've kind of pulled it back. I kind of like the name Veilguard. Solas, a Loki-esque trickster member of the elven pantheon of gods known as the Dreadwolf, created the Veil long ago while attempting to free the elves from their slave-like status in Thedas. This veil is a barrier between the magical Fade and Thedas, banishing elven gods and removing elven immortality from the world. But players didn't know that in Inquisition, where he is introduced as a mage ally and companion. However, at the end of Inquisition's Trespasser DLC, which sets the stage for Veilguard, we learn in a shocking twist that Solas wants to destroy the Veil and restore elves to their former glory. However, doing so would bring chaos to Thedas and those who call it home. The people who eventually become the Veilguard want to stop him. There's an analogy I like to use, which is if you want to carve an elephant out of marble, you just take a piece of marble and remove everything that doesn't look like an elephant. Veilguard creative director John Epler says. As we were building this game, it became really clear that it was less that we were trying to make the Veilguard, and more like the Veilguard was taking shape as we built the game. Solas is still a central figure in it. He's still a significant character, but really the focus shifts to the team. That makes sense. We realise Dreadwolf suggests a title focus on a specific individual, whereas the Veilguard, much like Inquisition, focuses more on the team. Yeah, all this makes sense. This is obviously like stuff we're going through. I'm assuming we're going to get into more like new news at the next page or two. Grading your rook. The Veilguard's character creator is staggeringly rich. That is brilliant to hear. I love how everyone's just saying like how detailed the character creator is. With a dizzying number of customizable options. Bush tells me that instinctively it is the heart of it. Noting that she believes everyone can create someone who represents them on screen. There are 4 races to choose from when customizing Rook, the player character, elves, Canary, humans, and dwarves, and hundreds of options to customize your character beyond that. You can select pronouns separately from gender and adjust physical characteristics like height, shoulder width, chest size, glute, and bulge size, okay, hip width, how bloodshot your eyes are, okay, how crooked your nose is, and much more. There are hundreds of sliders to customize these body proportions and features like skin hue, tone, melanin, and just about anything else you can adjust on your character. Oh, and there's nudity in Veilguard too, which I learned firsthand while customizing my Rook. Oh, okay, so obviously, yeah, we knew this game was going to be mature. The technology has finally caught up to our ambition, Dragon Age's art director Matt Rose tells me, as we decide on my warrior class Canary's backstory, which affects faction allegiance, in-game dialogue, and reputation standing. We choose the pirate-themed Lords of Fortune. Notably, instead of a warrior class, we could have chosen a mage or rogue. All 3 classes have unique specializations, bespoke skill trees, and special armors too. And although our Rook is aligned with the Lords of Fortune faction, there are others to choose from, including the Grey Wardens, the Shadow Dragons, the Mornwatch, and more. Yeah, we know the others are the Veil Jumpers and the Antivan Crows. There is some flexibility in playstyle thanks to specializations, but your class largely determines the kind of actions you can perform in combat. Rook ascends because of competency, not because of a magical MacGuffin. BioWare's core lead and Mass Effect executive producer Michael Gamble tells me, in contrast to Inquisition's Destiny has chosen me characterization. Yeah, it kind of gets the idea like you're not someone special in this game. You're just the guy or person who stood up and said, I'm going to take part. Rook is here because they chose to be here, and that speaks to the kind of character that we built, Bush says. Someone needs to stop this, and Rook says, I guess that's me. I like this. I like that they're not some prophesized chosen one, or they have the only special ability to save the world. I like that they're just someone, a normal person who said, I'm going to do it. No one else is stepping up. It's going to be on me. Beyond the on-paper greatness of this character creator, its customizability speaks to something repeated throughout my BioWare visit. Veilguard is a single-player, story-driven RPG. Or in other words, the type of game that made BioWare as storied as it is. McKay tells me that the team explored a multiplayer concept early in development before scratching it to get back to BioWare basics. The final game will feature zero multiplayer and no microtransactions. They've said this a lot. They're really trying to hammer home that this is a pure single player game. Happy to hear that. We all are. I pick our first and last name and then one four voices with pitch shifter for each two, and we're off to Minrathos. Okay. So we know from the names, the last name is chosen by your background choice. So Grey Wardens and Teven Crows, etc. You choose your own first name, and there are four voice options again, like in Inquisition: two male, two female, two American, two English. But we can mess around with the pitch a little bit. So I guess I could choose the male English one, and the person beside me could choose the male English one. But with the pitch changing, our voices could still sound a little bit off. That's cool. Right, next page. Exploring Tevinter for the first time. Throughout the Dragon Age series, parts of Thedas are discussed by characters and referenced by lore material, but left to the imagination of players as they can't visit them. Veilguard immediately eschews this, setting in its opening prologue mission in Minrathos, the capital of the Tevinter Imperium. Frankly, I'm blown away by how good it looks. It's my first time seeing Veilguard in action and my first look at Dragon Age game in nearly a decade. Time has treated the series well, and so has technology. Epler, who's coming up on 17 years at Bioware, wow, 17 years, Jesus, acknowledges that the franchise has always been at the will of the engine. Yeah, Dragon Age Origins and 2's Eclipse engine worked well for the time, but today they show their age. They really do. Yeah, I'm replaying Origins at the moment, and I've done a little bit of 2 just for fun. They're still great games, but the engine has aged, unfortunately. BioWare's Inquisition was BioWare's first go at EA's proprietary Frostbite engine. Mind you, the engine designed for first-person shooters and deciding not multi-character RPGs. No, and the team struggled there too. Epler and Bush agree Veilguard is the first RPG where BioWare feels fully in command of Frostbite, and more generally its vision for this world. That's good to hear. I imagine like the struggles with Mass Effect and Anthem probably helped them learn a lot about how to work with Frostbite and how to make it work for them. We begin inside a bar. Rook and Varric are looking for Nev Gallus, a detective mage somewhere in Minrathos. The first thing players will do once Veilguard begins is select a dialogue option, something the team says speaks to their vision of a story-forward, choice-driven adventure. After a quick bar brawl cutscene that demonstrates Rook's capabilities, there's another dialogue choice, and different symbols here indicate the type of tone you can roll with. There's a friendly, snarky, and a rough and tough direct choice, and I later learn of a more romantically inclined emotional response. There are replies that will build relationships with characters, romantic and platonic alike, but you're welcome to ignore this option. However, your companions can romance each other, we've already heard this, so giving someone the cold shoulder might nudge them into a warm embrace of another. We learn that Nev is in Dumat Plaza and head into the heart of Minrathos. Yeah, this is all from the gameplay that was shown off on the 11th. Rhodes explains BioWare's philosophy for designing the city harkens back to a quick dialogue from Inquisition's Dorian Palvis. Upon entering Halam Shiral's Winter Palace, the largest venue in Dragon Age history at that point, Dorian notes that it's cute, adorable even, alluding to his Tevinter heritage. If Dorian thinks the largest venue in Dragon Age history is cute and adorable, what must the places be like from? It's like this, Rhodes says, as we enter Minrathos proper in-game. Yeah, you get that a lot in Inquisition. Dorian's kind of like not happy with how the South looks because Minrathos is meant to be so much better, and we definitely see that in the gameplay. Minrathos is this ridiculously large metropolis with like a healthy mix of magic and non-magic kind of woven through it. It's meant to be otherworldly, and it really feels like it is just from the brief time we've seen it. Minrathos is huge, painted in magical insignia that looks like cyberpunk-inspired neon city signs, brimming with detail. Not only is the city run by mages built entirely upon magic, Rhodes says the team let its imagination run wild. Good, it should feel weird and otherworldly because of the magic. The result is the most stunning, unique city in the series. Down a wide, winding pathway, there's a pub and a dozen NPCs. Bush says BioWare used Veilguard's character creator to make each in-world NPC, except for specific characters like recruitable companions, and a smart use of verticality scaling and wayfinding to push us toward a main attraction. Solas attempting to tear down the veil. Okay, I like this little part here where the in-game character creator is used to make the NPCs. It kind of makes everyone feel a bit more real, I think, when they do this. It makes them, relatable to the appearance of Rook. All hell is breaking loose. Pride demons are rampaging throughout the city. Considering parademons were bosses in prior games, seeing them roaming freely in the prologue of Veilguard speaks to the stakes of this opener. Something I appreciate throughout our short journey throughout Manrathos to its centre below is the cinematography at play. As a canary, my character stands tall, and Rhodes says the camera adjusts to ensure larger characters loom over those below. On the flip side, the camera adjusts for smaller dwarves to demonstrate their smaller stature compared to those around them. That's good. If you played a dwarf or a canary in Inquisition, you know the kind of camera was a bit off quite a lot because Inquisition was originally only made to be like a human protagonist, and elves are close enough to humans. So it's good that they've kind of focused on this more. The Veilguard, who's who? Well, we learned a lot about returning character, but first time companion Lace Harding, Ice Mage Private Detective Neve Gallus, and Veil Jumper Balara Lutara. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. BioWare shared some additional details about other companions Rook will meet later in game. Darwin is a charming Grey Warden who's also an excellent monster hunter. Emmerich is a member of Navarra's Mornwatch and a necromancer with a skeleton assistant named Manfred. Lucanus is a pragmatic assassin whose bloodline descends from the criminal House of Crows organization. And Tash is a dragon hunter allied with the pirate Lords of Fortunes. All 7 of these characters during the Game Informer issue with Bella up front and centre in the spotlight. Okay, so we might learn more about Bella before we finish up with this article. Cool. This coupled with movie-like moments throughout the city as BioWare showcases the chaos happening at the hands of Solas' Veil Break ritual. Great, it's a cinematic start that excites me, and I'm not even hands-on with the game. Eventually we reach Nev, who has angered some murderous blood mages and rescue her from danger. Or rather, help bravely. Nev is quite capable, and well-acted dialogue highlights that. Together, Varric, returning character Lace Harding, who's helping us stop Solas and is now a companion, Rook and Neve defeat some demons. They then take on some Venatori cultists, seizing this chaotic opportunity to take over the city and other enemies before making it to Solas' hideout. Okay, I wonder who these other enemies are. We know demons and Venatori are going to appear. Maybe some street thugs, or maybe some of Solas' forces, perhaps? As we traverse deeper and deeper into this hideout, more of Solas' murals appear on the walls and things get more and more elven. Rhodes says this is because you're symbolically going back in time, as Manrathos is a city built by mages on the bones of what was originally the home of the elves. Okay. At the heart of this hideout, we discover Solas' personal Luvian. This magical mirror-like structure allows the gang to teleport and mechanically fast travel to Arlathan Forest, where Solas is secretly performing the ritual, while its effects pour out into Manrathos. Here we encounter a dozen or so demons, which BioWare has fully redesigned on the original premise of these monstrous creatures. Rhodes says they're creatures of feeling and live and die off emotions around them. As such, they are just a floating nervous system, pushed into a world from the fade, rapidly assembled into bodies out of wherever scraps they find. I won't spoil the sequence of events here, but we stop Solas' ritual and seemingly save the world, for now. Rook passes out moments later, like any true hero, and wakes up in a dreamlike landscape to the voice of none other than Solas. Okay. So this is obviously after when the two Illuvian, or the two Evanuris, appear at the end of the gameplay demo after we knock over that statue on Solas. He explains a few drops of Rook's blood interacted with the ritual, connecting them to the Fade forever. He also says he was attempting to move Elgarnon and Gillanon, part of the Illuminans or elven gods of ancient times, to a new prison because the one he had previously constructed was failing. So it is Elgarnon and Gillanon. I originally thought one of them, I'm assuming Gillanon, could have been Andruil, but it is in fact Elgarnon and Gillanon. Okay. Elgarnon, leader of the elven gods. Gillanon, well known for creating some messed up monsters. Not surprised those two were chosen, but I'm really, really happy they are. Unfortunately, Solas is trapped in the Fade by our doing, and these gods are now free. It's up to Rook to stop them, thus the stage for adventure is set. Okay, I was wondering how Solas was going to be handled post the opening sequence. He couldn't really be running around doing stuff because I thought one of two things was going to happen. He was going to join us as an advisor kind of thing, or he was going to be seemingly working towards saving the world but still doing his own goal, but we were going to be working towards saving the world and stopping him simultaneously. So it seems our actions have removed Solas from the picture altogether, and I assume he's still going to be playing a big part. They have said he's going to be playing a big part. It's just how much of a part is he going to play? The Lighthouse. After their encounter with Solas, Rook wakes up with Harding and Neve in the lair of the Dread Wolf himself, a special magical realm in the Fade called the Lighthouse. Cool. Where's Varric? Nobody's saying where Varric is, though. It's a towering structure centered among various floating islands. Epper says, much like Skyhold and Inquisition, the lighthouse is where your team bonds, grows, and prepares for its adventures throughout the campaign. It also becomes a more functional and homier as you do. Already, though, it's a beautifully distraught headquarters for the Veilguard, though they aren't quite referring to themselves as that just yet. Okay, so we've heard about this lighthouse before, this base. I wasn't really sure where it would be, but it seems we're actually going to be going from in the Fade, which is really cool. Because it was Solas' home base of operations, it's gaudy with its fresco murals adorning various walls, greenery hanging from above, and hues of purple and touches of gold everywhere. Since it's in the Fade, a realm of dreams that responds to your world state and emotion, the lighthouse reflects the chaos and despair of Thedas you were in moments ago. I see a clock symbol over a dialogue icon in the distance, which signals an emotional dialogue option. We head there, talk to Neve, select response to try our hand at flirting, and then head to the dining hall. A plate, a fork, and a knife, and a drinking chalice are at the end of the massive table. Rose says this is both a funny and sad look at Solas' isolated existence, an example of the detail Biowware's art team has put into Veilguard. It's a case of letting you see the story, he says. It's like when you go to a friend's house and see their bedroom for the first time. You get to learn more about them. Okay, so Solas is kind of just alone in this room, I guess. In like the comics and to Winter Nights, we get the impression that Solas is meant to have like this whole team that he's gathering elves from all across Thedas to help him, but it seems here he's alone. I'm assuming this operation that he has, they're still kind of running around doing stuff, but here they're kind of it's just him. Like he's alone in the world. No matter how much he wants to feel like part of the elven culture that's still ongoing, he's this ancient elf and he's just this outsider. Just very sad. From the dining hall, we gathered a not quite Veilguard in the library, which Bush says is the central area of the lighthouse, and where your party will often group and prepare for what's next. The team decides it must reach the ritual site back in Arlathan Forest, and Bush says I'm missing quite unique dialogue options here because I'm a canary. An elf would have more to say about the Fade due to their connection to it. Yeah, that's why I'm going elf for my first playthrough. The same goes for my backstory earlier in Marathos. If I had picked a Shadow Dragon's background, Nave would have had recognized me immediately and with unique dialogue. Yet we saw this. With our next move decided, we head to Solas' Alluvian to return to Arlathan Forest and the ritual site. Yeah, so it seems this is how we're getting around. Where in previous games it was like if you wanted to walk from Skyhold to Val Royeaux, or if you wanted to go from Redcliffe to Denerim, it was just meant to be you're setting out and you're walking and time is passing. In Veilguard, however, it seems that we just go through Alluvians and have like near instant travel around the place, which is, however, it's not fully functional without souls. And while it returns us to Arlathan Forest, it's not exactly where we want to go. A few moments later, we're back in Arlathan Forest, and just before a demon infested suit of mechanized armor known as a Sentinel can attack, two new NPCs appear to save us, Strife and Erlin. They are returning characters. Yeah, Harding recognizes them. Strife and Erlin, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, they're in The Missing, and I think they're into Winter Nights as well. They have is it Three Trees to Midnight is the name of the story? It's like the first story into Winter Nights. I'm pretty sure that's them as well. So they're members of the Veil Jumpers, so I'm assuming this is also how we get Bellara. Anyway, Harding recognizes them, something Dragon Age comic readers might know. Yeah. They're experts in ancient elven magic and part of the new Veil Jumpers faction. The ensuing cutscene where we learn Strife and Erlin need help finding someone named Bellara Lutara is long with multiple dialogue options. That's something I'm noticing with Veilguard 2. There's a heavy emphasis on storytelling and dialogue, and it feels deep and meaty, like a good fantasy novel. Bioware doesn't shy away from minute-long cutscenes. Good. I like big chunky cutscenes. Bioware says that's intentional too. Oh, sorry. Bush says that's intentional too. For Rook, the story's about what does it mean to be a leader, she says. You're defining their leadership style with your choice. Knowing that Rook is the leader of the Veilguard, I'm excited to see how far this goes. From the sound of it, my team will react to my chosen leadership style and how my relationship plays out. That's demonstrated when the game's dialogue and a special relationship meter for each companion's character screen. Okay, so like in Origins and Dragon Age 2, we can actually see as the approval moves up and down for our companions because you didn't have that in Inquisition. Okay, we'll jump down here first. The start of your pause screen is as important to a good RPG as the game outside the menus. Veilguards contains your map, journal, character sheet, skill tree, and a library of in-lore information. You can cross-compare equipment and equip new gear here for Rook and your companions, build weapon loadouts for quick change-ups mid-combat, cool, I like that, and customize you and your party's abilities and builds via an easy-to-understand skill tree. You won't find minutiae here, just real numbers, Bush says. That means a new unlocked skill trait might increase your damage by 25% against armor, but that's as in depth as the numbers get. Yeah, I don't want to be too nitty gritty. I know a lot of people like RPGs to be like really numbers crunchy and nitty gritty, but I think you run the risk of getting bogged down if you do that too much. I'm glad to see they're not going like full in depth. Passive abilities unlock jump attacks and guarantee critical hit opportunities, while abilities add moves like Wall of Fire to your arsenal if you're a mage. As you spec out the skill tree, which is 100% bespoke to each class, you'll work closer to unlocking a specialization, of which there are at least 3 for each class, complete with a unique ultimate ability. Cool. Bush says Bioware's philosophy here is about changing the way you play, not statistical minutiae. Yeah, I don't want statistical minutiae. I want variety in play to actually matter, not just individual small numbers. Redefining combat once more. Belera is deep within Arlathan Forest, and following the prologue's events, something is up there. 3 rings of massive rock fly through the air, protecting what appears to be a central fortress. Demon sentinels plague the surrounding lands, and after loading up a new save, we're in control of a human mage. Okay, so they changed halfway through. Following the trend of prior Dragon Age games, Veilguard has completed the series shift from tactical strategy to real-time action, but fret not, a tactical pause and play mechanic returns to satiate fans who remember this series' origins, pun intended. Very funny. Though I got a taste for combat in the prologue, Veilguard's drastic departure from all that came before is even more apparent here. Bush says players complete every swing in real time, with special care taking in animation, swing through, and cancelling. There's a dash, a parry, and an ability to charge moves, and a completely revamped healing system that allows you to use potions at your discretion while hitting right on the D-pad. Okay, handy. You can combo attacks and even bookmark combos with a quick dash, which means you can pause a combo's status with a dash to safety and continue the rest of the combo afterwards. Okay. What? It's a bit confusing. You can combo attacks and even bookmark combos. Okay, means you can pause a combo status with a dash to safety. So can I set up a combo, like dash away, and then like dash back in when it's safe to finish it off? Like that's what I'm reading. Okay. It looks even cooler than it sounds. It sounds confusing, mate. Like any good action game, there is a handful of abilities to customize your kit, and if you want to maintain that real-time action feel, you can use them on the fly so long as you take cooldowns into effect. But Veilguard's pause and play gameplay mechanics, similar to Inquisition's without the floating camera view, lets you bring things to a halt for a healthy but opportunal dose of strategy. Okay, I'm glad it's not like I would have liked maybe a bit more of the top-down look on it, but I think that's I'm just playing a lot of Baldur's Gate 3, so I kind of get that in my head. But I like this what it is. Like it was good in Mass Effect. I think it'll work very well here. In this screen, which essentially pauses the camera and pulls up a flashy combat wheel, which highlights you and your companion's skills, and you can choose abilities, queue them up, and strategize with synergies and combos, all while targeting specific enemies. Do what you need here, let go of the combat wheel, and watch your selections pay out. Bus says she uses the combat wheel to dole out her companion's attacks and abilities while sticking to real time action for her player controlled Rook. That's probably how I'm going to play it. On the other hand, Epler says he almost exclusively uses the combat wheel to dish out abilities and combos. Okay. Bush says each character will play the same in that you execute light and heavy attacks with the same button, use abilities with the same buttons, and to interact with the combo wheel in the same way, regardless of which class you select. That is good. You don't want, even with all the classes, you don't want each one to be controller wise vastly different from each other. Obviously, in game, you want unique attacks and abilities, ways to differentiate them, but you don't want to have to basically play a full mage playthrough and go back and play a warrior and have to learn like an entirely new control system because obviously that would really, really screw you over. But a sword and shield warrior, like we used in the prologue, can hip fire or aim their shield to throw it like Captain America, whereas our human mage uses the same button to throw up magical range attacks. The warrior can parry incoming attacks, which can stagger enemies. The rogue gets a larger parry window. Our mage, however, can't parry at all, However, they can throw up a shield that blocks incoming attacks automatically as long as you have mana to sustain it. Okay, cool. What I see from Veilguard is the game that really bridges the gap. Former Dragon Age executive producer Mark Darrah, who left BioWare in 2021 before joining the Veilguard team last year as a consultant, tells me. Uncharitably, previous Dragon Age games got to the realm of combat wasn't too bad. Yeah, that's fair. In this game, the combat's actually fun, but it does keep that thread that always been there. You have to focus on Rook, on your character, but still have the controlling character coming into the combat experience from the other people in the party. This is really the best Dragon Age game that I've played, he adds, noting his bias. This is the one where we get back to our roots of character driven storytelling, having really fun combat and aren't making compromises. Watching Bush take down Sentinels and Legions of Darkspawn on screen, I can already sense Veilguard's combat will likely end up my favourite in the series, though admittedly, as a fan of action games, I'm easy to sell here. I'm probably going to be the same. It's flashy, quick, and thanks to different types of health bars, like a greenish blue one that represents barrier and is taken in most effectively with ranged attacks. Okay. A decent amount of strategy, even if you don't use the pause and play wheel combo. Like the rest of the game too, it's gorgeous with sprinkles, droplets, and splashes of magic in each attack our mage unleashes. Though I'm seeing the game run on a powerful PC, which is sure to be the best showcase for Veilguard, most likely. Epler tells me the game looks amazing on consoles. Good. He's been playing it on PlayStation 5 and enjoying it in both its fidelity and performance modes, but I'll have to take his word for it. Well, the gameplay release on the 11th had prompts pop up like the X button, so I think that was meant to be on a PlayStation 5, or at least it was on a PC using a PlayStation 5 controller. But I mean, it's good to hear that at least it performs well on the consoles as much as the PC, because I also like with Dragon Age games or even Bioware games in general, they look great on consoles, but they do sometimes come across as PC made games first and foremost. In Entropy's Grasp, as we progress through the forest and the current in Entropy Grasp mission, we finally find Bellara. She's a veil jumper and the first companion you meet and recruit in game, unlike Nev, who automatically joins. And the centerpiece of this issue's cover image. Because our mage's backstory is a veil jumper, we get some unique dialogue. Bellara explains we're all trapped in a veil bubble, and there's no way out once you pass through it. Despite the dire situation, Bellara is a bubbly, witty, and charming. When designing companions, they're the load-bearing pillars of everything, Rhodes says. They're the face of their faction, and in this case with Bellara, the entire area of the world. She's your window into Arlathan Forest. Rhodes describes her as a sweetheart and a nerd for an ancient elven artifact. As such, she's dressed more like an academic than a combat expert, although her special iron gauntlet is both useful for tinkering with the environment and taking down enemies. Unlike Nev, who uses ice magic like our Rook and can slow down time with his special ability, Bellara specializes in electricity. She can also use magic to heal you. Yes! Something Bush says Dragon Age fans have been desperate to have in game. Yes, we have. Bush says if you don't direct Nev or Bellara, they're fully independent and will attack on their own, but synchronizing your team will add to the fun and strategy of combat. Bellara's electric magic is effective against Sentinels, which is great because we currently only have access to ice. However, without Bellara, we could also equip a rune that converts our ice magic for a brief duration into electricity to counter the Sentinels. That's interesting. So you can kind of modify your damage output depending on these runes. I mean, you could do that a little bit in previous games, but this seems like it's not just adding the extra damage, but completely changing it, which is very interesting. As we progress through Arathon Forest, we encounter more and more Darkspawn. All right. Beller mentions that Darkspawn have never been this far before because the underground deep roads where they usually escape from aren't nearby. However, with blighted elven gods roaming the world, the elven gods are connected to the blight. And thanks to a blight's radiation-like spread, it's a much bigger threat in Veilguard than any Dragon Age game before. Okay, so the Evanurus are in fact linked to Blight and the old gods and the archdemons, it seems. This has always been like a little fan theory, but this is confirmation, I guess. I continue to soak in the visuals of Veilguard with Arlantan Forest, elven runes, dense greeny, and disgusting blight tentacles and pustules. Ew. It's perhaps the most impressive aspect of my time seeing the game, although everything else is making a strong impression too. I'm frustrated about having to watch the game rather than play it. To be honest, yeah, I can imagine it's quite annoying. I'm in love with the art style, which is more high fantasy than anything in the series thus far, and almost reminiscent of the whimsy of Fable, a welcome reply from the recent gritty Game of Thrones trend in fantasy games. I kind of agree with that. Game of Thrones definitely gave like a certain vibe or tone for a lot of fantasy, just genre in general over the past couple of years. So it's nice to see that Veilguard is moving away, not fully away, but it's kind of going, yeah, but your fantasy doesn't need to be this depressing George R. R. Martin dream of like what the world is like. Rose says that's the result of the game's newfound dose of magic. The use of magic has been an evolution as the series has gone on, he says. It's something we've been planning for a while because Solas has been planning all this for a while. In the past, you could hint at cooler magic things in the corner because you couldn't actually go there, but now we actually can, and it's fun to showcase that. Bush, Epler, and Rhodes warn me that Arlathan's forest whimsy will sparkly contrast to other areas. They promise some grim locations and even grimmer story moments, because without that contrast, everything falls flat. Bush likens it to a thread of opportunism pulled through otherworldly chaos ravaging Thedas. For now, the spunky and effervescent Bellara is that thread. Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I know people are like, oh, it needs to be grimdark all the time. It doesn't. If it's grimdark all the time, it's just dull and boring. Making these like kind of brighter, lighter moments, not just in story and character, but in tone and design, really makes the grim dark moments when they do come up be even more grim dark. So it's good to see that. Companion customization. You can advance your bonds by helping companions on their own personal quests and by including them in your party for main quests. Every relationship level you rank up, shown on the character sheet, nets you a skill point to spend on them. Okay, so do they not get experience? Alright. Bush says the choices you make, what you say to companions, how you help them, and more all matter to their development as characters and party members. And with 7 companions, there's plenty to customize, from bespoke gear to abilities and more. Though each companion has the access to 5 abilities, you can only take 3 into combat, so it's important to strategize different combos and synergies with your party. Rose says beyond this kind of customizable characterization, each companion has issues, problems, and personal quests to complete. Bellara has her own story arc that runs parallel to and informs the story path you're on. Okay, so they don't gain experience, I guess. I guess as you grow closer to them is how you improve them, if I'm reading that right. That's interesting. But I guess for Bioware that makes a lot of sense because there's always been like so focused on characters and story and like and how those characters reflect and interact with the story. So it makes sense that they kind of maybe push away from experience for the NPC companions and rather have them grow as they kind of get to know you and grow with you. That makes a lot more sense. I hope I said that right as well. As we progress deeper into the forest, Belarus spots a floating fortress and thinks the artifact needed to destroy the Veil bubble is in there. To reach it though, we must remove the floating rock rings, and Belarus' unique ability, Tinker, can do just that by interacting with a piece of ancient elven technology nearby. Bush says we'll can acquire abilities like Tinker later to complete such tasks in instances where Bellara, for example, isn't in the party. Good. Nice to make the companions unique, give them their own unique abilities to help advance the story and explore the world. But at the same time, you don't want to have to solely rely on specific companions because then you just end up bringing them every time you replay the game. That reminds me a lot of in Dragon Age Origins, like Liliana always usually ends up being the one doing the lockpicking because he gets everyone a bit later on and so leveled up. So unless you're playing as a rogue, you kind of always end up bringing Liliana quite a bit to do lockpicking, which kind of sucks. Not sucks that you have to bring Liliana, it just sucks that you're kind of forced to bring Liliana. Bellarus must activate 3 of these in Arlathan Forest to reach the floating castle, and each one we activate brings forth a slew of sentinels, demons, and darkspawn to defeat. Bush does this with ease, showcasing high level gameplay by adding 3 stacks of arcane build-up to create an arcane bomb on an enemy, which does devastating damage after being hit with a heavy attack. Now she begins charging a heavy attack on her magical staff, then switches to magical daggers in a second loadout, assessed with a quick tap of down on the D-pad to unleash some quick attacks. Then back to the staff to charge it in some more and unleash a heavy attack. Okay, so yeah, more weapon variety for the mages, not just staffs, it seems. After a few more combat encounters, including one against a sentinel that's frenzied, which means it hits harder, moves faster, and has more health. We finally reach the center of the temple. Within it is a particular artifact known as the Nadas der Thalen. Okay. Which better says means the inevitability of knowledge. Before we can advance with it, a Darkspawn Ogre boss attacks. Nice, Return of Ogres. It hits hard, has plenty of unlockable, unblockable, I should say, red coded attacks, and a massive shield we must take down first. However, it's weak to fire, and our new fire staff is perfect for the situation. After taking down this boss in a climactic arena fight, Bellara uses a special crystal to power the artifact and remove it from a pedestal, destroying the available. Then the Nadas der Thalen comes alive as an archive spirit, but because the crystal used to power it breaks, we learn little about the spirit before it disappears. Fortunately, Bellara thinks she can fix it. Fixing the broken stuff is kind of her thing, Epler says. So the group heads back to the Veil Jumper camp, and as interested I am in learning what happens next, the demo ends. It's clear that even after 3 hours with the game's opening, I've seen no negligible amount of the game. Frustrating, but equally as exciting. Okay. So, who is this archive spirit? They kind of hinted at in the Discord Q&A that you could upgrade and customize your gear and equipment, and it would be tied to a unique character doing it. A lot of people think it was Sandal, and I think it still could be Sandal. But I wonder if this archive spirit is actually who we're going to use. Don't call it an open world. Veilguard is not an open world, even though some of its explorable areas might feel like one. Gamble describes Veilguard's status as a hub and spoke design, where the needs of the story are served by the level design. A version of Inquisition's Crossroads, a network of teleporting Luvians returns, and it's how the players will traverse across northern Thedas. Instead of a connected open world, players will travel from Luvian to Luvian to different stretches of this part of the continent. This allows Bioware to go from places like Minrathos to tropical beaches in Arlathan to grim and gothic areas elsewhere. Some of these areas are larger and full of secrets and treasures, others are smaller and more focused on linear storytelling. Arlathan is an example of this, but there are still optional paths and offshoots to explore for loot, healing potion refreshes, and other things. There is a minimap in each location, though linear levels like in Entropy's Grasp won't have the fog of war that disappears as you explore like some of Veilguard's bigger locations. Regardless, Bioware says Veilguard has the largest number of diverse biomes in the series' history. Cool! So yeah, it seems, I get the impression the maps that we're going to be exploring are a bit more reflective of what Dragon Age Origins had, like the way the Brazilian Forest or the Underdark? No, that's the wrong franchise. Like the way the Brazilian Forest or the Deep Roads worked. That yeah, it's a lot of areas to explore and there's multiple winding paths, but it's not open world. You can't just go from A to B as the crow flies. That they're just like a winding series of paths to make your way through. Dragon's Delight. With a 10-hour day at Bioware behind me, 10 hours, Jesus, you lucky man. After hours of demo, gameplay, and interviews with the leads, I'm acutely aware of my favourite part of the video game, the surprises. I dabbled with Origins 2 and put nearly 50 hours into Inquisition. Dude, get those hours up. Mine are at least in the 600s, I think, which is still very small compared to some people. But any familiarity with the series the latter gave me has long since subsided over the past decade. I wanted to be excited about the next Dragon Age as I viewed each teaser and trailer, but other than seeing the words Dragon Age, I felt little. Without gameplay, without a proper look at the actual game we'll all be playing this fall, I struggle to remember why Inquisition sucked me in 10 years ago. This trip reminded me. Dragon Age, much like the Thedas of Veilguard, lives in uncertainty. The turbulence of Bioware's recent release history and the lessons learned from it, the drastic changes to each Dragon Age game's combat, the mystery of its narrative, and implications of its lore. It's all part of a wider Dragon Age story and why the studio keeps returning to this world. It's been a fertile franchise for experimentation. While Veilguard is attempting to branch out in unique ways, it feels less like new soil and more like the harvest Bioware has been trying to cultivate since 2009. And I'm surprised by that. I'm additionally surprised, in retrospect, how numb I've been to the game before this. I'm surprised by Bioware's command over EA's notoriously difficult Frostbite engine. Yeah, I think we're all surprised by that, but it's great to hear. To create the prettiest game yet. I'm surprised by this series' 15 years transition from tactical strategy to action-forward combat. I'm surprised by how much narrative thought the team has poured into these characters, even for Bioware. Perhaps having no expectations will do that to you. But most of all, with proper acknowledgement that I reserve additional judgment until I actually play the game, I'm surprised that Veilguard might just be the RPG I'm looking forward to the most. Okay, I believe that is it. Yeah, we're on to. I don't know what that is. We'll just go back. Okay, but yeah, this is a very interesting article. Got a kind of rehash of some information from the start, but some new information. Like the lighthouse is in the fade, which is really cool. I was kind of thinking, I literally had the idea that it was an actual lighthouse, like somewhere like north of Minrathos or near Arlathan Forest, that we were going to be just like in a decrepit lighthouse and working from that. I don't know why that's where my mind went. Um, but in the fade, not what I was expecting. We get Bellara pretty quickly on, which is great to hear. Um, Pretty much confirmation that the Evanuris are connected with the Blight and the old gods and archdemons. Big fan theory that's been going on for a while. I'll probably try and do a video on that theory. Not really a theory anymore, I guess. But yeah, great little bit of confirmation on that and how important the Darkspawn and Blight are going to be in this game, it seems. Which is great to see. They're a great antagonist force in Dragon Age Origins. Kind of take a bit of a step back into an Inquisition, so it's really nice to see them properly jumping and coming back. I mean, yeah, like this article for me, it's just giving me more and more like impressions that this game is going to be great, that it is going to reach the standards set by past Bioware games. Like it's going to hopefully make up for some of the mistakes over the past like three or so games, but really still feel like a good Dragon Age game. Like I'm getting that it's a return to form for classic Bioware games, but at the same time they're knowing they can't go back and just rethread old waters. They can't just make Veilguard be a carbon copy of Origins, which a lot of people want for some reason. They know they have to take the series forward in new and interesting ways, at least gameplay wise, but can return to that core story, character development that we all know and love, which is what this series needs. Yeah, this is really, really great to hear and read. It's great to see that someone, you know, who is meant to be objective, and I'm assuming this person writing it is fully objective, but it's great to see them like being so happy and excited for Veilguard because like it's one thing for the devs to be kind of going out and saying, yeah, Veilguard's great, we're really happy with it. But it's nice to see members of the gaming journalist community like kind of talk it up. And I don't think there's really any bias from this because I mean the gaming journalist industry has not been kind to Bioware over the past couple of years. Like the absolute slaughtering they got when Anthem and Andromeda came out. So I don't think no one's been told to sugarcoat this article or any other articles. It seems that yeah, this person was obviously really enjoyed their time at Bioware, like 10 hours, lucky guy, and it seems that Bioware is returning to old form, which is great to see. I'm really really looking forward to Veilguard. The more we're getting, the more excited I'm becoming. I hope though they just don't show us too much. Like I'm glad that a lot of this article is also just like recapping what we got from the 20-minute gameplay video a few days ago, that we're not just getting like, oh here's like a brand new, like it's not just that Arlathan part with Bellara all the way through. It's a bit of a retread with some new information. I hope they don't give us too much. But yeah, I don't think there's anything else really to talk about. A lot of information, very interesting. I'm really looking forward to seeing more of this game and finally getting my hands on it because yeah, I've been waiting 10 years for this and I honestly cannot wait. What do you guys think of the article? What parts stood out and excited you the most? For me, it's the stuff about the companions, how like their skill leveling up is going to be a bit different, but also how we can still like customize their armor and everything. The lighthouse also seems to be really interesting. I'm looking forward to exploring that more. And of course, the pretty much confirmation that the Evanuris and the Blight slash Darkspawn are so heavily linked with each other, and that it's Elgernon and Gillenon that are coming back, which I'm really excited because those two are some of my favorites. And yeah, it's just so great. I cannot wait to properly get my hands on this game in a couple of months. But anyway, guys, what was your favorite part of the article? What did you like the most out of all of it? Do let me know down in the comments and we can start a bit of a discussion. If you like this video, do give it a like as well because that will really help the channel grow. And if you want to stay updated on all content going forward, which will include a lot of Dragon Age Veilguard videos, do subscribe to the channel. And I shall see you all next time.